Do your students sometimes feel overwhelmed or even a little hesitant when you ask them to write in the target language? Because, well, building writing confidence doesn't happen overnight. It grows with small, purposeful moments every day. So in this episode, we look at how integrating short, focused writing tasks into your lessons can help students process language, express their ideas, and build confidence in their writing. So whether you're a teacher of novice or advanced language students, these practical strategies will fit right into your teaching routine. So let's jump in. Whether you're planning your first lesson or celebrating your 20th year in the language classroom, I understand exactly where you are. I'm Joshua Cabral, and I'm also a language teacher in my 29th year of teaching. Now, I also have the opportunity to support schools and teachers all across the country who are working towards increasing proficiency and building confidence in their students. This is the World Language Classroom Podcast, with over 200 episodes of practical strategies tested in real classrooms just like yours and mine. So let's jump in. Vamos, allons-y. Hello, my friends. Bonjour, mes amis. Hola, mis amigos. Welcome to the World Language Classroom Podcast. I am Joshua Cabral, and I thank you very sincerely, very much for being with me here on the podcast. It's one of the many things that I know that you do as an educator that really goes the extra step in helping your students and looking at your teaching. So thank you so much for finding the time each week to hang out with me here on the podcast and talk about language teaching. So today we're going to talk about writing. This is actually going to be 2 episodes. We're going to start with smaller writing today, and then next week I'm going to continue the conversation about writing when we get a little more elaborate with what students are doing. But for today, we're going to focus on shorter writing assignments. Now, writing can feel overwhelming for students, particularly when they face long assignments or sometimes unclear expectations, and that falls on us. But many learners equate writing with grades. They think of the red ink, the corrections that are going to end up on the paper, and then getting it right or getting it wrong, and that pressure alone can shut down any kind of risk-taking when it comes to writing with our students. But we can help our students with their writing confidence, and this will be through frequent, low-stakes practice writing that feels doable and purposeful for students. Because when writing becomes a regular part of your classroom routine, not just a major event, a big assessment, but when it's just a regular part of what you do, students can begin to see it as a thinking time rather than a testing time, an opportunity to put their ideas down without being called out on what's right or wrong, and that in itself is going to help build their confidence. So this is mostly going to be about building confidence, stamina, and risk-taking with writing. Next week, we're going to look at how we actually address the writing when it's longer than that. But today is all about getting students to not freeze up and not know what to do and just put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, however they're writing, without being freaked out by it, by having that confidence to just jump in and feel that it's something that's doable. So when we break down writing into short, focused tasks, so these are ones that are designed around their proficiency level and clear communication goals. When we do that, students can begin to build their fluency, and this will help them to gain ownership over their navigation of the language, over their ability to work with the language. So these small moments are going to really help to strengthen their retrieval because they're going to be using language and recycling language. It's going to deepen their processing of input because they are writing about something that was likely input that they got beforehand. And it's also going to help students move from recognition to production. So just that interpretive recognition part to actually that presentational writing part. So it's all about these small moments to give them that opportunity to do that and see that they are capable. Now, for me, the best part of all of this is that these short writing activities can fit naturally into really any lesson. This could be after listening to something, after reading, as a warm-up, as a reflection, as an exit ticket, as a do now. Anything that you're doing in the classroom, you can add in these short writing prompts. And over time, these moments will compound into noticeable growth in both students' confidence in writing and their accuracy and their ability to take risks when they're writing and not just stick to those things that they're absolutely 100% sure of. So these frequent, low-pressure writing opportunities are really an effective way to help students develop their confidence and communicative ability. So these short writing prompts will give learners an opportunity or a space to reflect on their input, to organize their thoughts, to perhaps rehearse with language if they're going to be having a conversation after, or to communicate meaning without the pressure of perfection. Now, when everything is graded, that's when students don't take risks with language. But if they know that this isn't going to be graded, but it's just an opportunity to put their thoughts down and to practice and to hone their skill, so they're going to have a lot less pressure about perfection. Now, again, we're going to get to the accuracy piece on next week's episode. Today is all about stamina and building confidence. So because these tasks are brief and very focused, students can experience success regularly. These aren't one-off. This is a regular part of what you do in the classroom. And success will build their confidence. Confidence fuels risk-taking. Risk-taking leads to growth. So just doing it consistently is going to get to that growth place. So the key for this to be truly successful for students is really about thoughtful planning and management on our part as the teacher. So we have to make sure that there is a clear purpose in their writing, and also that it's the appropriate length. What's their proficiency level? How long are you going to give them? What's the expectation of length? And have that defined time limit so that students aren't just filling lots of time, but is a short amount of time and a very clear purpose and an appropriate length. And then you also want to have a meaningful follow-up. It's not just writing to write. Now, yes, this is about building confidence and taking away the overwhelm in their writing, but we also want to have a meaningful follow-up. That's part of it having a clear purpose. So when writing is framed as practice and not just performative, you can create a classroom culture where students are really willing to try, to revise, to improvise, to improve, all of those things that we want them to do with language. But when there's a grade hanging over it, sometimes they're not going to be so willing to take risks with it. So have these short writing opportunities that have a clear purpose, an appropriate length, defined time limits, and meaningful follow-up. And we're going to look at what that can exactly look like at all the proficiency levels in a second, but I just want to put that out there first so that we can really understand the reason for using these short writing opportunities for students that are ungraded, but the whole purpose is for them to gain confidence. So now let's look at some concrete classroom strategies. So the first one is to keep the writing tasks short and purposeful. So short writing tasks should focus on one idea, one function, or one communicative goal. So avoid stacking too many expectations at once. So some examples might be write 3 sentences about your favorite hobby. There's a clear purpose for that, and it is a defined length, so students know exactly what they're doing and what the expectation is. You could ask them to describe your morning routine in 2 sentences. You could ask them to describe your morning routine in 5 sentences, depending on what your proficiency level is. You could ask them to list 4 things that you learned or heard about in our listening activity today. So just 4 things, very concrete. Or you could ask them to write 1 question that you would like to ask a character in the story. So again, 1 question about a character in the story. Or you could ask them to summarize the reading in a few sentences, in 3 sentences, in 4 sentences. Be very concrete with the length. So all of these examples have a very clear purpose and a length that you're putting to students right away. So you want to ask yourself, are students describing? Are they listing? Are they comparing? Are they giving an opinion? Look at all the possible language functions that they can use as you're creating these prompts, because the clarity is going to reduce student anxiety, and less anxiety means more confidence. So students are more willing to write when the target feels achievable to them. It's directly related to what you're doing. It's not just a random topic. So they're comfortable with that. It's very clear what you're asking them to do, and it's within a very defined amount of time. You might even want to set a visible timer for 3 to 5 minutes that you have projected, or set a timer in the classroom. When the time is short, perfectionism decreases and fluency increases, because students are going to be less focused on the perfectionism and more focused on the message that they're trying to get out. this is where their confidence and risk-taking is going to come in. So the second strategy is to look at aligning the tasks to the proficiency levels, because confidence grows when the expectations match the student's current proficiency. So for novice learners, use familiar vocabulary and high-frequency structures. You want to encourage lists or labels, short phrases, simple sentences, or maybe even provide sentence starters or sentence frames and allow word banks. So for example, you could give them the frame, I like blank because blank, or in my family there is or are blank, or today I feel blank. So what students are doing is they're filling in these sentence starters and these sentence frames that you're providing, and this is helping to scaffold them even in these smaller writing situations. For intermediate learners, you want to ask for connected sentences and to encourage them to share their opinions and to substantiate that, to give reasons for their opinion. Or you could also ask them to compare, invite comparisons or short narrations or retelling of something that they heard or that they read. So for the intermediate learners, this is beyond the sentence frames and the lists and using basic vocabulary, but looking for those prompts that are going to have students create connected sentences, opinions, reasons, and short narrations. So for example, you could ask them to compare their routine to a character's routine in the story, or explain why this tradition is important if it's a cultural topic, or to describe what happens first, next, and finally within a story that you've read. So all of these are going to move beyond the simple language and give students an opportunity in a short amount of time with a very defined task. It'll give them the opportunity to get more comfortable with writing and to focus on their fluency in writing. With more advanced learners, we want the prompts to be about reflection and analysis and maybe even taking a perspective. You also want to integrate cultural and authentic text responses. So for example, you could ask students to evaluate a character's decision in a story that you're reading, or to explain how this issue affects your community, some issue that you're reading about, or a video that you watched, or just something that's happening and it was a discussion you were having in class. Or you could ask them to defend their opinion and to provide reasons and to explain why that is their opinion or why they feel a certain way. So you can see with each of these, we are looking at 3 to 5 minutes of writing, but each has a very clear purpose. It is at their proficiency level and it is achievable in that amount of time. So with this clear criteria, students are able to see what success looks like. So we're not grading for the amount of errors, but we're really looking at, did your message come across at your proficiency level? And then the third thing to look at is how you're going to manage time, space, and follow-up. So these are the logistics of doing short writing. And so this short writing is really most effective when it becomes a routine. So in terms of time, look at 3 to 5 minutes at the beginning or at the end of your class. If it's at the beginning, it's based on something that happened yesterday or in the previous class. If it's at the end, it's a reflection on something that you did in class that day, something you read, something you watched, a discussion, maybe even an activity or a game that students are going to write about. You could do it midway in the class after you have done an activity. It doesn't always have to be at the beginning or the end, but at the place that's most appropriate where you can do it in a sustainable way. The most important thing to keep in mind is that consistency matters more than the length. So when we consider the space, meaning where is this going to happen, you could have dedicated writing sections in students' notebooks. You could have a shared digital journal, so they can do this digitally if you use Google Classroom or something like that. You could have exit ticket slips that students are actually writing on. They could write on small whiteboards and do quick writes that way. I often do this in my classroom where they are just writing on the small whiteboards of the marker in my classroom. So it doesn't stay and remain in their binder. It's not even electronically accessible, but they use the whiteboards to do this short writing as well. So there are lots of different ways that you can go about tracking where students are responding to these short writing prompts. And then when they're done, the follow-up. What are the options here? So you could have students do a pair share read aloud where they share with a partner, somebody around them near their desk, where they can share what they wrote. They might even read it out loud. They could exchange, read each other's, and then comment on it. You could highlight one strong sentence, so have them choose one and share that out. You could take the writing today and build it into a task tomorrow, where the short writing tomorrow is an extension on what they wrote today. You could then take what students wrote and use them for future lessons so that you could use them as examples, perhaps anonymously. So follow-up doesn't mean that it's going to be graded. Sometimes the follow-up is just doing something with what they wrote. Often what I will do is I will collect if students are writing, or I will look digitally at what they typed and see if there are common inaccuracies that are coming up that all students are doing, or if there's a structure or vocabulary that they're avoiding or that they're trying to circumlocute because they don't have access to that. I use that rather than grading them. That is a formative assessment that I look at and I say, okay, we need to do more work on family vocabulary. We need to do more work on numbers. We need to do more work on transportation vocabulary or places around the town, whatever it is you're asking them to write about. If you can see that students are staying to a small amount of vocabulary or structures, that's great information for us saying that they want more, they need more, and then we can build that into subsequent lessons. So these short writing activities are not something extra in the classroom, but they really are a bridge between input and communication. Because when students write often and they do it briefly and it's not this big overwhelming task and you really put a purpose on it, then you're going to see that students' confidence is going to grow, that their anxiety about writing is going to decrease, and even their fluency, meaning the rate at which they're able to write and it just comes out without getting stuck on how do I say this, where do I put that? All of that is going to decrease so that their fluency increases with less anxiety, more confidence, and then eventually you will see that their proficiency will develop pretty naturally because they get used to using these structures and they're confident and they're willing to take risks. And over time, you will see that students will stop asking questions like, how many sentences do I have to write? Because it is in a defined amount of time and the prompt is really clear and they feel like they can accomplish this within that time period. So it's not about the number of sentences, it's about responding to the prompt. And that right there alone will shift everything about writing in your classroom. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering how to design and manage all these short writing tasks really effectively and across proficiency levels, I would invite you to take a step further with this and look into one of my Ready for Tomorrow Quick Win PD courses. It's called Short Writing Tasks That Build Confidence and Proficiency, and it will walk you through this even deeper step by step. So this is a great starting point where you're listening to all of these strategies, but in the course, you will, in just 30 minutes, you will see why frequent purposeful writing matters for confidence and proficiency. You'll see how to create level appropriate, easy to implement short writing prompts, and then a repeatable framework for managing your writing time, your space, and follow-up, and then lots of examples at every proficiency level. And in each course, you get an audio lesson that is perfect for you very busy teachers. Everything's also in PDF, so you'll get printable planning templates, examples, all of the notes. There's reflection prompts to fine-tune your practice. And once you've worked through the whole course, you can get a personalized certificate of completion for your PD records. And along with that, I will provide specific feedback on a lesson idea that you submit. So you can get this course individually or as part of the growing Quick Win PD bundle, giving you access to all current and future courses at a really great value. So I would like to give you something to really consider doing in your class this week. Add in a short writing prompt to one lesson that you're already teaching. Don't add something new. It's just a short writing prompt on an activity that you are already doing. Keep it focused and manageable, just a few sentences or even a list. And once students do that, notice how giving students this small, purposeful writing space helps them to process language and grow more comfortable expressing themselves. And do it more than once. Do it 3 times this week. And as you do it more, you will see how comfortable students get with writing. And remember, if you want to have the very clear system for making the short writing a regular part of your classroom, the Short Writing Tasks That Build Confidence and Proficiency Quick Win PD course is ready to support you. You'll find the link in the show notes, or you can head over to my website, wlclassroom.com/shortwriting. So thank you for listening and for all the incredible work you're doing to help your students become confident, real-world communicators. If you want to bring more proficiency-focused strategies and ideas into your teaching, you can find options for you and your school in the show notes and on my website. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And let's stay connected on social media. You can find me at WL Classroom pretty much everywhere. You'll also find lots of ideas, suggestions, and resources on my website, wlclassroom.com. Now stay curious, keep learning, and continue the great work you do inspiring and supporting your students.